Math 7, Unit 1, Lesson 1, Introduction to Integers, Number Lines, and Absolute Value. So we've got a number line here. Number lines, the numbers need to be in order, and they have to have equally spaced markings on them. Absolute value would be the distance from 0. So 0 is a very special place on the number line. 3 on the number line is a distance of 3 from 0. So the absolute value of 3 is 3. Negative 3 on the number line is located to the left 3 from 0. So its distance from 0 is 3. So the absolute value of negative 3 is 3. 5 has a distance of 5 away from 0. So its absolute value is 5. And negative 2 has a distance of 2 away from 0. So the absolute value of negative 2 is 2. In general, the absolute value being the distance from 0, you can take the number and ignore the signs. Okay, when you compare these, you'll want to evaluate them first. So 2, absolute value of 2 is 2. 2 compared to 5. Well, 2 is less than 5. Okay, next example. Absolute value of negative 4 is 4. Absolute value of negative 3 is 3. Absolute value, or 4 is greater than 3. Okay, next example. The absolute value of negative 5 is 5. And when we compare that to 5, we find out that they are equal. So the absolute value of negative 5 is equal to 5. Okay, next we'll look at some true-false examples. Absolute value of negative 3 equals 3. Well, the distance of negative 3 from 0 is 3, so that is true. The absolute value of 3 equals negative 3 is false, because the absolute value of 3 will be positive 3. You will never have an absolute value equal a negative, because they're always positive. It's distance. Okay, the absolute value of the opposite of x equals x is sometimes true, but since it's sometimes false, we have to overall say false. And the reason we're going to go with false here, let me just demonstrate real quick. If, for example, x equals 3, well then this would be the absolute value of negative 3 equals 3, which we already know is correct. That's fine. But if I said that x was negative 3, which is an okay number for x to be, I would do the absolute value of the opposite of negative 3 equals negative 3. Now there's a lot going on in the absolute value here, but it's just forcing it to be positive because it's just the distance. So this would say that 3 equals negative 3, which is not true. So this is sometimes true, but it's only true if x is bigger than 0, if x is positive. Okay, this last example, if x is less than 0, then absolute value x is equal to the opposite of x. Now this one, x is less than 0, that means that the number is negative. So if you take the absolute value of a negative number, do you get the opposite of the negative number? Well, what's the opposite of a negative number? Oh, it's the positive of that number. If you take the absolute value of a negative number, you also get the positive of that number. So this actually ends up being true, but only because we limited it down to only negative numbers. Just as this one only works for positive numbers, this other one only works for negative numbers. Okay, in the notes, this is page 2 in the notes. You can print them right there in Canvas. Let's go on to page 4. These are the official notes for absolute value. And we've got the definition for integer, absolute value, and magnitude. I encourage you to read over those and become familiar with them. Integer is a positive or negative whole number, or 0. Or you can think of it as a number with no fraction or decimal parts. Absolute value is the distance from 0. And magnitude is another name for absolute value. It's the size of the mathematical object. So the size of negative 3, it's 3 away from 0. Its size is 3. Okay, just evaluating these. Evaluate absolute value of 13 is just 13. The absolute value of negative 5 is just 5. The absolute value of negative 11 is 11. The absolute value of, now we're going to compare. Use a less than sign, a greater than sign, or an equal sign. Negative 4, the absolute value of negative 4 is 4. The absolute value of negative 3 is 3. Since 4 is bigger than 3, this is greater than. Example 105. Negative 11 compared to negative 7. Well, with a number line, negative 11 happens to the left of negative 7. So, numbers get bigger as you move to the right. Therefore, negative 7 is the larger number. So negative 11 is less than negative 7. Next example, the absolute value of 5 is 5. Comparing 5 to negative 5, it is greater. Example 107, the absolute value of negative 9 is 9. So we're comparing 9 to 9. They are equal. Okay, you'll want to do the first assignment, integer 1. Number 1 on there, you're going to just evaluate, find the absolute value. Number 2, you compare, just like we did in the notes there. 3, 4, 5, and 6 are review problems. 3, get to long divide. 4, find the area of the rectangle. 5 and 6, looks like multiply and subtract. 7 is like those examples that were done earlier in the video. Basically, we're trying to figure out whether n is positive or n is negative to make these true. So it is similar to what we did back here on this page with the true or false, right here. So maybe rewind back to that point in the video if you need to look at it again. Okay, and then number 8, this kind of reviews what we did back in 6th grade with absolute value. Just read and work through it.